So, good day. We're learning, this will be the fifth shear, and we'll conclude with this shear, chapter 1 of Tanya. So, this is part number 5. If you look for it on YouTube, it's chapter 1, it will be part 5. And today, we learned it inside already yesterday, the end of chapter 1 on page Vav. And today I'm going to talk about it a little bit. And this is a very fundamental question. I'm not going to say this is the only answer or the answer, but the question that I'm sure you've asked yourself, and if you haven't, it's time to ask yourself the question. When you learn this piece of Tanya, where he quotes an Eitz Chaim, that's Kabbalah, and he quotes a Gemara, a Gemara, both saying clearly, at least it seems from the language, that there is no good, ein bohem toiv klal. It doesn't just say ein bohem toiv, that when non-Jews, when Gentiles do something good, there is intrinsic value to what they did, but rather ein bohem toiv klal. There is no good whatsoever in their action. And that's a very, very heavy statement. Again, it's not the Balatanya's original statement. So people throw the darts at the Alter Rebbe for saying this. Sorry, chap. It's the Kabbalah, Reb Chaim Vital, and it's a Gemara. So if you have a complaint, go there. Send your emails and your FedEx letters over there. But nevertheless, what's the explanation? So simply, as far as Pshat and Tanya is concerned, it's very simple. The Alter Rebbe is making here a comparison between the Nefesh HaBahamis of a Jew and the Nefesh HaBahamis of a non-Jew. Right? What is the Nefesh HaBahamis? The animating soul, the animating drive. All humans have an animating drive, otherwise they're not alive. So since every human, Jew or non-Jew, have an animating force that keeps them alive, why would there be a difference in basic life of a Jew and a non-Jew? This is the issue, and it's to this issue that it says in Kabbalah, and the Alter Rebbe cites it here, there's a difference. That the Nefesh HaBahamis of a Jew comes from a place which has both Tov V'Ra, good and bad, versus the Nefesh HaBahamis of a non-Jew comes from a place that has no good at all, only Ra. That's the sequence of what we're learning. The Alter Rebbe isn't here interested in discussing Gentiles. It's a mistake to think that way. He's here to show you the virtue of a Jewish Nefesh HaBahamis. But, nevertheless, the question's still a question. And the issue's still an issue. Okay? How do we respond to the kamikaze fighters who gave their life for their country? How do we respond to chesed, kindness, that's done by a human being anywhere in the world, any religion or non-religion, and right away we say, hey, what he or she did isn't genuine. Only what a Jew does is genuine. I mean, seems very egotistic and very rude, etc. So this is a question, right? So before I attempt to answer the question, I was studying Tanya with a friend in Manhattan years ago, and we came to this, and he asked me this question, and I told him I'd get back to it because he was a novice to Hasidus and to Torah learning, and I felt he needed a strong background, much more knowledge to appreciate an attempt of an answer. But with you, Chevra, you're already learning and davening, and you're way on your way, as we all are, hopefully in the right way. So we don't have to wait. We can tackle it now. And basically, I heard what I'm going to tell you now. I heard this from my mashpir, Reb Yoel Khan, when I asked him this question myself once. And this is what he told me. He told me Reb Yoel at times spoke very briefly, but in his kitzur, there was everything. So he told me, the question isn't on the non-Jew. He said the question is on the Jew. He says the wonder and the pella isn't how a non-Jew's deeds are not 100% genuine and altruistic. The question is how a Jew is able to have his deed be genuine and altruistic. And I remember walking away from hearing his answer. I said, boy, that threw me for a loop. And then I read something that he wrote, which is available in Hebrew, and you should read it, called Noisim Beyadust. Today there's a whole sefer of topics in Judaism. He explains the basic topics of emunah, betochin, seichel, with Chazal and the Avos and Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's a fundamental work, and you could get it. It's called Noisim Beyadus, and I really encourage you to read it if you're proficient in Hebrew. Anyway, and over there he explains much more elaborately what he told me. And what does he explain? So I'll say it now. Now comes my own words. What he says is the following, I believe. He says like this: the human condition cannot do something that's completely and totally objective and agendaless. Impossible. Because the human condition is such that there's always some reason for doing what you do. And as soon as there's a reason for what you're doing, what you do, it's not pure objectivity. There's a string attached. So therefore, when the Gemara says shekol tzedakah v'chesed, she'umas oiv de gelilim oisim, all kindness and righteousness and chesed that Gentiles do, Einon Elias Yair, is only to show off and all to brag. That's the human condition. The Gemara is not saying it with the intent and the thought there's something wrong. No, that is the human condition. And that's the way God created the human condition. The question is, how can a Jew rise above that? How is it that a Jew is able to do something and transcend the human condition? That's a chiddush. And the question is how? And to this, the answer is based on a teaching that Hashem, and Rabbi Yoel talks about this at length, and he explains it, that there's 5 categories to creation. Right? There's the doimim, tzemeach, chai, umedaber, the inanimate, the vegetative, the living, and the speaking. And then it says there's a 5th category. You know who the 5th category is? Yehudim. A Jew. Now, 1 second. A Jew, look, we are a body. We're a human. There's a 5th category. Oh, what does that mean, there's a 5th category? That means God Almighty, in His infinite wisdom, put part of His infinity and transcendence into the Jew. And that's what we're going to learn in the next chapter, by the way. We walk around with part of God in us, godliness. And that's a chiddush. It makes no sense. So this is the explanation that Reb Yoel shared with me, that that the question is not on the Gentile, why what he does can't be 100% genuine. The question is, how can a Jew's action be 100% genuine? And you know what the answer is? It's not humanly possibly. It's only Jewishly possibly, because it's a part of God that's put into it's God who is objective and no strings attached, doing it through your body as a Jew. And why he decided that? Because that's what he decided. We're not now addressing the question, is it fair, is it unfair? That's not the issue right now. We're asking, how, Yonason, is it possible to do something to be completely altruistic and genuine? And therefore, when we hear about a Yid, a Jew, having self-sacrifice, so you might say, you know why he has self-sacrifice? Because he made a decision. And he came to a point where he figured this is the way to do it. What we're learning in Tanya here, and we will learn more next chapter, is no. That's only his rational part. You're right. Rationally, so rationally, here, sir, a Jew's decision to do chesed and a non-Jew's decision to do chesed are the same. Rationally. But at the end of the day, what drives that rationale by a Jew? It's the neshama. It's the nefesh. And this answers another issue that we didn't speak about, and it's important to mention, especially to those that might have not heard it until now. We know in classical Gemara, David, we have the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. The Alter Rebbe uses the word nefesh. Neshama, nefesh. Hey, what's wrong with the Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov? If someone asks you, but the Alter Rebbe is explaining here in chapter 1 and coming to chapter 2 about the nefesh elikis, the second soul, the godly soul, it sounds like it's the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. And that's a mistake. It's a bad mistake. The nefesh habamis and nefesh elikis is not Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov. Why? Because Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Tov are already a Yetzer, a midah, an inclination of good and bad, which is already part of the human experience, the body experience. The Alter Rebbe's is intervention over here, again, based on Reb Chaim Vital. It's not his original thought. It's based on the Reb Chaim Vital and the Arizal and all that. But the way he puts it together is that it's a nefesh. A Jew has two different drives, not just two different consequences or two different behavior modes. It's an entire different person. That's why I said there are 4 categories in creation, and then there's a 5th called a Jew. The 5th category, being a Jew, is different. Now, the hard thing with this issue is, Avram, is that we look at ourselves and we look at the world around us and we say, well, he or she, and he or she, or I, as thinkers, you need to divest yourself from he or she or I. You won't come to understand something and come to the truth if it's always about he or she. We've done he or she for 50, 60 years of a life. He or she. In other words, I'm going to say Isser is a Bosner Chassid, and they find something at the Bosner Chassidim that seems inappropriate. So we'll say the whole shita of Bosner Chassidus is treif, is no good, is chaotic. No, it doesn't work that way. There is the shita. The shita's emes. The shita's true. However, it happens to be that this person takes it to the right and this person takes it to the left. So this whole idea of he or she is a crooked way of understanding ourselves and the world and Torah and Chassidus and everything else. So the same thing is over here. The fact that you see someone doing chesed, and it's because they want to have their name in the paper, or because they want to get fame, doesn't strip that individual from the nefesh elikis that God inserts in that person. And that's the driving force, in truth, behind his action. And again, if you say, well, could you prove that? Yes, you could prove it. And the Alter Rebbe talks about this in chapters 18 and 19 of Tanya. How could you prove it? When you're faced with Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice, for one thing and one thing only. Not for your country, not for your rabbi, not for your Rebbe, because you're a Jew. And if you look through the Chazal and the Gemaras, where Chazal talk about the Mesiras Nefesh of individuals throughout Shas, you'll see a common theme. And the common theme is God. God, Hashem. Anything else that's mixed into the equation isn't the Mesiras Nefesh that the Baal HaTanya is talking about over here in chapter 18 and 19, which is the proof of the pudding. In the pudding, the proof in the pudding is Mesiras Nefesh, self-sacrifice. This is based on what I heard from Reb Yoel, how he explained to me once how we understand the Gemara and the Reb Chaim Vital and the Alter Rebbe, the attitude towards Goyim. And if you work with this thought and you understand it and then ultimately feel it and work with it, your whole attitude towards Goyim will change. And I want to tell you something. They talk about, Jews having bias against Goyim and Hasidim in particular. It's so wrong. Because if you learn this piece of Tanya and other pieces of Tanya, you have a whole different attitude. And it's not because of liberalism. Not because of liberalism. Hasidim weren't liberals, okay? Hasidim aren't liberals. It's because we understand that each has a real purpose from on high that God puts into the world for a Jew and a non-Jew today. And this is a gewaldige insight to think about and to really think about it before you daven and as you daven, and even when you're driving on the freeway, doesn't mean to say you should go hold hands with Goyim and go to their parties, and that's not what it means. But it means value the person because the person has a purpose. And so the purpose of a goy is to do chesed with a reason. The purpose of a Jew is to do the chesed because it's genuine. That's one nekuda that I wanted to share that we didn't talk about yesterday. I'd like to hear your questions or comments on this if you have any. It's so clear. It took me 50, 60 years to get it, and you guys got it in 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
I think it's a unique perspective, and I never thought about it that way. It's not the natural human condition is to do things for your own selfish motives, not for someone else.
Okay.
And when a Jew comes right above that, there's a whole different spin.
Right.
It's not like the Goyim are like Lord at us. It's that we've been that way too, without Hashem's intervention and giving us the higher nefesh.
Right, exactly. So in other words, the chiddush, the novelty is how can a Jew do it? That's the question. Right. And the answer is through the neshama. Yes, Isser.
So let me just repeat what you said to me.
I don't hear you. Isser, I don't hear you. So all of a sudden you went soundless. Don't hear you. Okay. When we'll hear you, then we'll have you speak. Go ahead, Yonason.
When a boy does something, when a boy does trouble me, I know.
Oh.
So what happened over there?
Oh. So thank you. First of all, thank you. I meant to talk about that. I forgot, and you reminded me. Yashakoyach Yonason. So the Mittler Rebbe, I think in his Biurei HaZoyer and then the Reb Hillel Paritcher in his Sefer, they say, and it's based on, I believe, the Alter Rebbe as well, that when the Alter Rebbe says, and he cites that Goyim don't have any good at all, he's not talking about the Chasidei Umas Olam. The Chasidei Umas Olam, the righteous Gentiles who fulfill the 7 mitzvahs B'nai Noach, they come from Klippas Noiga. But there too, I want you to understand, the Klippas Noiga of a goy that does Sheva mitzvahs B'nai Noach is not the same Klippas Noiga of a Jew. Some people make that mistake. Don't walk away thinking, oh, well, the Gentile that does the 7 mitzvahs B'nai Noach, the 7 universal laws, they're just as good as a Jew. Of course they're just as good as a Jew, but they're different than a Jew. Remember, there are 4 categories, the 4th being the human species, the human condition, and then there is the 5th category, which is Yidden. That will never change. Never, ever will it change. And we see it. We see it every day in our lives. Okay? So, Yonason, Goyim, non-Jews, Gentiles, who fulfill the 7 mitzvahs, and our Rebbe in particular made a big issue of this, both in the 1940s when he and Rabbi Bindel wrote a concise Shulchan Aruch, a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch for non-Jews. Did you know that they wrote that? And recently it was published. And then he spoke about a public, I think in 1983 or 84 out of Farbrengen, encouraging Yidden to share and inspire non-Jews to fulfill the 7 universal laws. And the Rambam, the Rebbe cited the Rambam writes that the reason for Goyim, for non-Jews, that they should fulfill the 7 universal law is because Moshe was told so on Mount Sinai by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by God Almighty. Not because it makes sense, etc., although the 7 universal laws are all logical and rational laws. Have courts, don't murder, etc. So, Yonason, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. So you basically said that the goy goes up to the level of from the 3 impure clippers to Klippa Noiga of the goy. He goes up to Klippa Noiga of the goy.
Yes. Right.
Which doesn't touch the Klippa Noiga of the Jew, but it's still higher than the the 3 clippers of the goy.
Yes, and again, since you mentioned you're explaining it in terms of clippers, the Kolosh Klippos Atmeis, it's one category of 3 layers, 3 husks, right? It's completely contaminated. Stay away far. It has no a Jew shouldn't be connected to it whatsoever. Klippas Noiga is the translucent klippa in which there's some darkness and some light. So you could kind of, tamper with it and have some association. But to say that it's Jewish, it's not Jewish. A Jew is elikus, godliness. And it's the godliness that also has a nefesh abamis of klippas noiga that challenges for the purpose of bringing out the best of godliness.
You say that a goy also has those challenges on the level of whether to do 7 mitzvahs B'nai Noach?
Yes. Because there is a level of free will, not ultimate free will, but there's a level of free will that a goy has too. But ultimate free will, B'chira Chofshis, is only by a Jew. But the idea, in other words, the human condition, which is the non-Jews, the Gentiles, the human condition is such that we have challenges. I mean, again, just go into, be born and live life, and you see you have challenges, Jew or Gentile. So challenges we know we have. And the challenges are there to make you stronger. So for the non-Jew with who's obligated and instructed to follow 7 universal laws, it's in those matters, absolutely. And that's why they're credited. I don't know if that's why, but that's also included in the credit that they get, that they come from Klippas Noiga of a goy. You understand? Klippas Noiga of a goy is already an upgrade, like you said before, compared to the 3 Sholosh Klippas Atmeis. So the challenge, Yonason, enhances the upgrade. Or better said, the challenge solidifies the upgrade, substantiates the upgrade. Yeah. It gives validity, right. David, are you following this discussion? Rabbi David.
To some degree, but what about that everybody's created with Tzelem Elokim?
What about the fact that every human being is created with Tzelem Elokim, right?
Correct.
Yes. That doesn't mean yet you have a neshama. That means that there is an aspect of divinity, of Tzelem Elokim, to all of humanity. The Rebbe was asked this question, and either he wrote it or he said it orally, but and he said, I heard this from, I think, from someone who discussed it with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, a non-Jew has an association with godliness and also has their own neshama, their own soul, and it's divine. Like, that was the question. Is the soul of a non-Jew not divine? I think Dr. Block told me that a student asked this to the Rebbe when he brought a group of students in the 60s or 50s or 60s to the Rebbe, I think. One of the professors, the Chabad professors, told me this. And the answer was yes. Oh, I remember Dr. Block said at a Pegisha, can I remember, at a gathering in Crown Heights in December, they used to bring college students, and this question was raised by one of the college students, and he said no. And then the Rebbe, there was a Yechidus, a discussion with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said that's not correct. They have divinity. You hear that? And that's, I believe, saying it in the words that there's the Tzelem Elokim. That's their divinity. But that divinity doesn't equal Jew. Tzelem Elokim kind of is the parent figure, the umbrella figure for godliness. The world was created by God. Everything in the world. It doesn't mean that identifies the particular type of godliness. And that's what we're discussing here in Tanya. I want to just finish with one more word. If you go back to page 10, in the middle where he starts his explanation, bringing the Reb Chaim Vital, he says, Ach bi inyan al pi mashkos of Reb Chaim Vital b'shara kadusha, the l'chol ish Yisrael, he says, to every single Jew, Echot tzaddik, whether it be a tzaddik, ve'echot rosha, whether it be wicked, yesh shtei neshamas, he has 2 souls, right? So the Rebbe once said that the Alter Rebbe here is also alluding to the fact that whether you are righteous, a tzaddik, or whether you are wicked, you're a rasha, there's the echod within you. There is unity, oneness of God within every single person. Echod tzaddik. Echad Rasha. Even though the person is even though the person is a Rasha, wicked in their behavior, they still have an Echad, a one, a God, a relationship with the Creator. And the Alter Rebbe alludes to it by saying Echad Tzaddik ve'Echad Rasha. Because he could have said, again, it's quoting the Reb Chaim Vital, so it's not the Alter Rebbe, the Reb Chaim Vital. He could have said, L'chol ish Yisrael, Echot Tzaddik v'Rosha, whether they're a Rasha or a Tzaddik. Why does he say a second time Echot Tzaddik, and again Echot Rasha? To point out to you that whether your behavior is Tzaddik-like, righteous and good, or whether your behavior is wicked and bad and all of that, Russia, there's the Echot. And this is another very important fundamental teaching that the Alter Rebbe plants in the first chapter of Tanya, which is magnum opus of Chassidus Chabad and Chassidus in general, how to look at the world, how to look at every Jew for sure, and even how to, and then he goes on to talk about how to look at a Gentile. So, if anyone has a positive view of Gentile, it was the Chabad Chassidim and the Chabad Rebbes, and we saw this with the Rebbe really over and over and over, how he always found the good within every human being, and the specialty, including non-Jews. And that's why he spoke so much at the Fabrengens about, this issue and that issue having to do with non-Jews. And people had a taina complaint to the Rebbe. Why are you concerning yourself with Goyim? You don't have enough Jews to work with? What are you into proselytizing? You all of a sudden 7 mitzvahs b'nei noyach. The Rebbe got a lot of flack for that, you should know. Then, in the 80s. Now it's like every Tom, Dick, and Harry, Wendell Jones and company became fans of 7 mitzvahs b'nei noyach. Now, Wendell Jones might have started earlier, I'm not sure, but the point is, the point is, now it's popular. Going to Litvische places, the Kirov programs, and others, Goyim, yeah, But you take a look at the foundation, at the Tanya. Again, it's Chazal, it's the Gemara. I'm saying, but the Alter Rebbe, develops it, and you see the 200 years of Chabad Hasidus and the Rabbeim and the Rebbes, how they led their Hasidim and how they were involved in communal activity and how they were involved in government and how they reached out to government and spent a lot of time on it. It all comes from this fundamental teaching here that we're learning in Tanya. Chevra, have a great day. I have another shiur. We'll see you all tomorrow. Zai gesund. Bye-bye.